Welcome to the 700 Club. Israel and the U.S. dealt severe blows to Iran's nuclear program this year. But even so, Iranian officials aren't giving up. They're determined to rebuild their nuclear power.
Now concerns are growing in the Middle East that another war between Israel and Iran is inevitable. Julie Stahl reports from Jerusalem.
Iran publicly displayed its ballistic missiles and drones for the first time since the war with Israel in June. This, as a report in the New York Times says, it's only a matter of time until another Israel-Iran war, since it's unclear how badly the U.S. strike damaged Iran's nuclear program. Ali Vaez, Iran project director at the International Crisis Group, told The Times that Iranian officials say their missile factories are working 24 hours a day because they hope to fire 2,000 at once to overwhelm Israeli defenses, not 500 over 12 days as they did in June. He says both sides believe another confrontation is inevitable, so Iran is doubling down on preparedness to produce a new equilibrium that will wipe out the sense of Iranian weakness. In the meantime, experts say it's unclear whether or not Iran's highly enriched uranium stockpile made it through the war. Iran says it's buried under the rubble, but Israel believes Iran's stockpile, which is enough to make 11 nuclear weapons, has been whisked away for safekeeping. Meanwhile, as the U.S. and Israel work on plans for Phase 2 of the Israel-Hamas ceasefire, there's talk that Gaza might remain divided at the Yellow Line, with part controlled by Israel and another by Hamas. According to the Times of Israel, 6 European officials say the next phase of the plan seems to be on hold and that reconstruction will only take place in the Israeli-controlled area, which could lead to years of separation. And Hamas returned the body of another hostage overnight. The IDF says 73-year-old Meni Godard was murdered by Islamic Jihad on October 7th and abducted from his home in Kibbutz Be'eri into Gaza. 3 hostage bodies remain in Gaza. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says there is concern about violence in Judea and Samaria, also known as the West Bank, that could scuttle talks in Gaza.
But yes, look, certainly there's some concern about events in the West Bank spilling over and creating an effect that could undermine what we're doing in Gaza. We don't expect it to. We'll do everything we can to make sure it doesn't happen.
A handful of Israelis torched and defaced a mosque in a Palestinian village on Thursday and wrote graffiti messages on it. The move came a day after Israeli leaders condemned such violence.
Any incidents of lawlessness are dealt with to the full extent of the law. The IDF operates under strict ethical guidelines and international law in Judea and Samaria.
Government spokeswoman Shosh Bedrosian pointed out, on the other hand, Judea and Samaria are a hotbed for Palestinians planning and carrying out terror attacks.
9 major attacks took place in September, 8 in the West Bank, Judea and Samaria region, and one side, Israel. The security services were able to foil 105 major terror attacks. 9 people were killed and 24 injured in the September terror attacks.
The Israel Defense Forces also revealed they had dismantled a Hamas terrorist stronghold in the Bethlehem area. The IDF said they had apprehended more than 50 terrorists and said they had planned to carry out shooting attacks against security forces and Israeli civilians. So even though the Gaza ceasefire remains in effect, Israel is still dealing with potential terrorism in the West Bank and Gaza now, and the possibility of another major military conflict with Iran in the future. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, I hate to predict doom, but it looks like doom is in the future because we didn't finish the job. And whether you agree with that or you don't agree with that, the ideology that is within the Iranian government absolutely hates us and hates Israel. We're the great Satan. Israel is the little Satan. And as long as we think that somehow or other, if we contain them or we sanction them or we do these kinds of things, that somehow that ideology is going to change. Well, it hasn't. Even when the people have rebelled against it and said, we want freedom, we want a secular government. We're tired of being ruled by these religious fanatics that beat young women to death because they aren't wearing their scarf correctly. Even when they do that, what happens to them? Well, Well, the leaders of that movement are taken into the public square, and cranes are brought in, and they're hung from the crane so everyone can see this is what happens when you rebel against us. We had an opportunity. Israel took the lead, and somehow we thought, okay, when we bomb a single mountain, that somehow everything's going to change. It didn't, and it's going to come back again and again and again. The reason? The ideology says you're not a good Muslim until you join with us and eliminate Israel off the map. You're not a good Muslim unless you're in the struggle against the United States. Death to America is on the flag of the Houthis. And somehow or other, we want to say that's not a terror group, that's not a threat, and we don't have to really pay attention to it. Well, we're going to wake up one day and saying, oh boy, I wish we'd paid attention to that, particularly if they get any kind of ballistic missile that can travel all the way to the United States. If they have nuclear weapons, absolutely they're going to use it in Tel Aviv. The next target, you and me. In other news, the government shutdown has ended, and still the fallout will be with us for some time. Ephraim Graham has that story and more from our CBN newsroom. Ephraim?
Gordon, even as the government reopens, a return to normal could take some time. Millions of workers, services, and systems remain stretched as the longest federal government shutdown in history comes to an end. CBN's Brody Carter brings us a look at what's going to happen next.
After 43 days, the shutdown is over, but for nearly 1.5 million federal employees who went without pay. The big question remains, when will the money come, now that Congress and the president have agreed to keep the government open?
This was a no-brainer. This was an easy extension.
According to the 2019 Government Employee Fair Treatment Act, furloughed employees and those forced to work are guaranteed back pay, but the money isn't instant.
Either way, the clock starts the moment the bill is signed and becomes law.
Attorneys predict a lump sum should arrive within the coming days according to the law, but for some agencies, it could be longer. To recognize the strain on employees during the shutdown, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem announced bonuses for some TSA agents who stayed on the job.
We are going to be handing out bonus checks of $10,000 to TSOs, to agents who work for TSA who served with exemplary service.
But for others, like air traffic controllers who also worked without pay, the shutdown's impact is still up in the air. The FAA is now racing to reverse flight reductions imposed at major airports. But airlines warn full flight schedules likely won't be restored until after Thanksgiving. On the ground, public institutions are reopening in phases, but the National Park Service says parks were left vulnerable and now face months of cleanup and lost revenue.
The fridge is pretty much empty.
For millions of Americans, the shutdown meant uncertainty over food assistance. The SNAP program is now funded through next September. But at the Internal Revenue Service, a backlog from weeks of inactivity means tax refund delays are likely. And some analysts believe the economy could possibly suffer.
Fourth quarter growth may have a subtraction of about 1.5% during those 3-month period, during that 3-month period. And by contrast, the growth for a full year is typically averaging around 2%. So that is a significant hit.
Economists say the impact is a stark reminder that even when the government's doors back open, the financial aftermath is far from over. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Also in Washington, House Speaker Mike Johnson says there will be a vote next week on releasing the Epstein files. Johnson says the vote will take place next week, although it isn't clear exactly when. The vote would push the Department of Justice to release the files, although it would allow the Attorney General to withhold some material, for instance, on victims' personal information. Democrats have tried to link Epstein to President Donald Trump, but the White House calls the democratic process a smear. The vote to release the files appears likely to pass the House and would then go to the Senate. It is not known if the Senate will be taking up the measure. Turning overseas, more than 2 weeks after Hurricane Melissa struck Jamaica as a Category 5 storm, cleanup efforts are still underway amid massive devastation. CBN's Operation Blessing arrived with bottled water, water purifiers, solar-powered lanterns, medical clinics, hygiene kits, and hot meals. Here's a look at one of the many families grateful for that help.
I remember being inside the house and the roof opened. The wind came inside and went up and burst the roof from inside.
Hurricane Melissa struck Jamaica with winds exceeding 180 miles per hour. Sasha was terrified, not only because her home was being destroyed, but also because she didn't know the fate of her two children, who were at their neighbors.
While we were trying to get out of the house that was being damaged, I had to be focusing on getting my kids from where they were, because the roof on that house was coming off as well.
Her children were safe, but everything else was lost. Sasha and her husband built a makeshift shelter for their family, but they didn't know how long they could survive without help.
The main issue that we're having right now is water. The stores are cut off.
Then Operation Blessing came in with bottled water and water purifiers. We also handed out solar-powered lanterns to help navigate the dangerous terrain at night. During the day, free medical clinics were held, hygiene kits were handed out, and hot meals were served. News soon spread that help had arrived.
They would tell us that the name is Operation Blessing. So we search around and then we see your sign. And that's how we're here. I saw the Operation Blessing team handing out water, preparing breakfast, and I was told that lunch is being prepared. So when I went there, and I got a warm welcome as well. So it's like a home away from home. As a mom, that is the most awesome thing to know that there is help out there to assist with me getting my children something to eat so they won't have to go hungry. Operation Blessing is a big light of hope right now for us because we were looking around to see if anyone would be there to help us, and you guys were just right there. We are grateful. And I must say thank you so much for being here to help us. I am so happy you guys are here.
I've seen Operation Blessing at work on many occasions covering news, and I can tell you those on the receiving end call it a miracle and an answer to prayer. Gordon?
And you're part of that miracle if you're a member of the 700 Club. That's you at work in Jamaica right now. You're helping people with water. You're helping them with food. You're helping them have hope again in the aftermath of these storms. If you're not a member of the 700 Club, I invite you to join. A portion of every gift you give goes into the wonderful work of Operation Blessing. Whether it's disaster relief or water wells or free surgeries or livelihood programs or feeding programs right here in America, you're a part of all of it when you join with us. How much is it to be a member? Just $20 a month, 65 cents a day. If you want to give more, you can give at 700 Club Gold, $40 a month. 1000 Club is $1,000 a year. That's $84 a month. Whatever level, do it now. 1-800-700-7000.